Hello and welcome. This is Sunrise. I'm Ayo Makinde. It's exactly 1 week to Christmas. Another year that we have had to contend with COVID-19, the latest variant being Omicron. Why am I standing to start this show this morning? Because we need to applaud a set of people who I would consider the heroes of 2021. The fact that we have been able to stay alive until now. Scientists, medical workers, health workers across all spheres of the health sector, the primary healthcare, secondary healthcare, and tertiary healthcare, all across Nigeria. There are people developing vaccine, be it phytomedicine or the conventional one, and those who have continued to work endlessly to ensure that businesses open, our lives do not stalemate, lockdowns are coming down gradually, and our lives can get back to what it used to be as much as possible. One of the projections done by Bismarck Rewani, an economist lately, is that to a large extent, businesses seem to have opened up to 60%. So I'm standing this morning on behalf of every Nigerian who is grateful to say thank you to all of our health workers, and allow me to clap for you. Thank you for all you do. You are the unsung heroes. You are the one who allow our lives to go back to normal, and even though it doesn't seem like it, even though you do not go celebrated all the time, we appreciate you, and we are very grateful. It is perhaps for the same reason that you are actively working that another country, Canada, has removed Nigeria from that travel ban list again. And everyone seems to agree that now travel restriction is not really a thing, so it's not really as helpful as it would be. So that is another thing to celebrate, and it is all thanks to all of our health workers all across the globe, Nigerians working abroad and Nigerians working at home, and all of the people in authority who are doing everything to ensure that our lives are good. And we can even talk about another Yuletide, another celebration in exactly 1 week from now. We say thank you to every one of you. Another thing that I would like to applaud this morning is the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Committee. Now, this committee was set up in 2016 by the President and is chaired by the Vice President, and all the things that they have done has been to enable the business environment in the country. They've had 4 national plans. The 5th national plan, National Action Plan, was just launched just a few days ago as the 5th anniversary of the Enabling Business Environment Committee activities also kicked in. And what do? They look at various sectors of the Nigerian economy, at areas in which there have been clogs, and try to enable business, jumpstart activities, remove bottlenecks and bureaucratic bottlenecks that have not allowed businesses to thrive the way they ought to thrive. So in Nigeria, officially we have something in the region of 41.5 million micro, small, and medium enterprises, comprising of at least 41.4 million micro enterprises and 73,081 small and medium enterprises all across the nation. Together, these micro, small, and medium enterprises contribute about 50% of the GDP. They are responsible for 59.6 million jobs, which represents 86.3% of national workforce. They also contribute 7.64% of export receipts. The question then is, we have seen the numbers per jobs that they have engaged. But then there is still that big question mark that economists talk about, the mortality rate of businesses. Just yesterday or day before yesterday, we were in a conversation around the inflation figures released by the NBS. And an economist, Dr. Bongo Adi, was telling us that the mortality rate of small businesses is still quite high. It says 8 out of 10 of businesses in Nigeria collapse within the first 5 years. The question is why? We know PEBEC is doing a whole lot of good. We know that the partnership between PEBEC and the Bank of Industry is very strong, helping Nigerians to do business and to do it better. Kudos. But I hope that this National Action Plan, I do not have the elements of it here now, this 5th National Action Plan to enable the business environment in Nigeria will also, or is considering the mortality rate of small businesses to ensure that at least they survive. And not just for the short term, which is subsistence business, but a sustainable economy that can rank among the 100-year-old businesses in 100 years from now. And some of them actually find a way to put menu on the table for their families. The big elephant in the room, as far as businesses are concerned, especially agriculture, is insecurity. Oh, we'll be talking about that one later. So talking about menu. The first item we'll be looking at this morning is safety this Christmas season. Well, maybe we'll be putting safety and security together in this conversation. And then, of course, we'll be talking about the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, which is on the table of Mr. President. That there are those who believe that going by the countdown is just one day to go. By this time, well, tomorrow, Sunday, will be the last day. It's a lot of things going on in that space. And then it's the season of giving. What does that mean? And who is giving what? We'll talk about that one. And as well as the Artist of the Week. That will be our home stretch this morning. So I say welcome to Sunrise. Grab your own cup of cocoa or cocoa. This is mine. I'll be back. We'll look at the issue of safety from in our world, especially at this time in our lives in Nigeria. When we talk about safety, we're talking about safety on the roads, right? But then we're also talking about safety from COVID and all those things. And so all those protocols, NPIs, non-pharmaceutical protocols also have to come to play. But today we want to talk about safety this Christmas season. I have a panel joining us this morning. Olusegun Ogungbemide is the Lagos Sector Commander of the Federal Road Safety Commission. Thanks for joining us today.
It's a pleasure.
We also have Bola Edwards, who is a child safety and security expert. She is also convener of Strap and Safe Child Foundation. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
And as you would have seen, right beside her is Stanley Okoli, who is a political consultant. Thanks for joining us. As well as Uchenna Orji, who is Commissioner for Information in Abia State. I got that right? Ebonyi State, my apologies.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us today. Okay, so gentlemen, first of all, most of the time when we talk about safety and security, we just put children in the assumption block. We do not really consider them. For instance, when a person is kidnapped, we only think about the person that is kidnapped. We do not consider the effect on the children of the person that has been kidnapped, the family of the person that has been kidnapped, and all those things. So permit me to begin from there, because it seems like it's the biggest insecurity challenge that we have on our hands now. How does that resonate with you?
Well, it's quite worrisome, because children usually are relegated to the back burner, especially from this part of the world where we come from. And it would amaze you to know that we have a statistics of about, say, every 4 minutes, we lose a child all over the world. So for me, I think that's very staggering. And it's a wake-up call for everyone, stakeholders involved with children, to making sure that children are safe everywhere and anywhere they find themselves. So at this point where children are so insecure, so to speak, especially with all the insecurity that we have on around, we have to do more. As governments, as NGO, as guardians, as parents, and as custodians of those children. There's so much to be done.
Well, talking about so much to be done, are you comfortable with the pace of work that the authorities have put into ensuring the safety, especially of children in schools? I mean, when we talk about safety of adults, we know where they are. just on the floor of the National Assembly, member of the House of Representatives, I think Chris Anubogo or something like that. What's his name now? Chris, yes, Azubogo, was complaining about some politicians in the Southeast being kidnapped. We'll come back to that one. But for children, we know that their locality is in schools. And Daily Trust, for instance, keeps a track record every day of children that are still in captivity. There's a report that says about 1,000 have been kidnapped this year, and about 200 or 300 of them are still in captivity. When in terms of doing more, what more do you expect to be done?
Well, especially with the advent of the abduction of children in the last few years, we've tried to put some certain things in place. And this is what we tell school owners, that for you to have these children in your custody, there's a lot you have to put in place. First, you have to think of the perimeter fence that you're putting up around the school area, meaning that the children have to be well walled up. You must have a manifest, making sure that the children that come to school are the same children that are going back home in their numbers. Then again, do we have technology? Have we been able to make use of technology, embrace technology by making use of CCTV, making sure that you monitor the activities of those children all around the school environment? Then again, you must have what we call risk assessment done. Risk assessment meaning that you must make sure that you check for hazard in and around the school environment, including human beings as well, meaning that you have to be able to screen the people who come into the school environment.
Well, I guess you've just given government a to-do list this morning.
Absolutely.
While we are on holiday. We're talking about safety now. Well, it's not all we're talking about. So, Mr. Ogungbemide, as far as the road safety is concerned, we know it's an annual thing for the Road Safety Commission, the Ember Month campaign. I know that some celebrity special marshals and the conventional special marshals, the road marshals, go around town from time to time to do these things, sensitize people about what to do to keep themselves safe and all of that. For you, how effective has that been over the years?
Thank you very much. If you want to judge from available information and data, and thank God you are one of the members, you agree with me that Federal Road Safety Corps has come a long way.
Oh, certainly.
Right from 1988, the foundation of the Corps was actually laid on advocacy. That was what we started with, not even enforcement. For the first 1 or 2 years, it was public enlightenment at motor parks, at through the media, irrespective of the source of the media. We made the best use of it. And along the line, we started appreciating the fact that in line with the normal jinx that towards the end of the year, crashes do, there's always an upsurge in the rate of crashes, and it became a thing of concern. So we started adopting the idea of upping our game towards the end of the year. That's where we introduced the normal annual flag off, just to let me say, introduce the Ember season into us. But at the same time, we also appreciate the fact that from January till December, the crashes that kill somebody in January is not different from the one that claim lives in December. So rather than waiting till we get to September, why can't we just kick off from the inception so that we can save life? Because if Mr. B dies in January, he's not coming to enjoy Christmas that is coming up in December. So we can afford to protect the life of Mr. B right from January and still add more value to it. That's towards the Ember month. And this year, even what we have witnessed, I think we should give kudos to all the effort, because so many things have been brought in, and with the collaboration of all the media houses, virtually every week you see us featuring in one program or the other. And we are not just talking of the conventional sensitization. We go to motor parks. We call it morning cry. Every morning between 6 and 6:30, before that driver enters the road, our men are always there to speak with the driver and the passengers. Because we know that when it comes to issue of safety on our roads, it's not just about the driver.
And what kind of response or feedback or collaboration have you received from that particular activity?
Well, at times we might not really be able to judge from for the measure of achievements until we give analysis of what the crashes were.
But what's been the feedback from
the feedback
activity?
is that the commuters are happy because when they have a platform to talk to the driver when they are proceeding on that trip. So when it's making that misconduct on the road, they make reference. Shibi, they just spoke to you at the park. And we are also able to speak with the management of the park. It's like handing over both the driver and the commuters to the management. So we are here to assist you to do your job. So the feedback has been quite encouraging. That's why we've not been able to stop it, because we know that people really appreciate what we are doing. And the best way is that you don't drop the winning team.
Absolutely.
You sustain it.
Well, the motor park is just one of your publics.
Exactly.
Another one of your publics are politicians, if I can say that. But so let me speak with them first of all. We're still talking about safety and security, especially for the season. Well, Mr. Oji, you are a politician in government. And I'm very sure that you must have concerns when you hear that there's been some level of security breach. I don't even know. Sometimes it's difficult to call it safety or security because either way, both of them seem to have a nexus somewhere. So when you hear about, any form of safety breach or security breach, how does it hit you? And is there anything you think your government or governments at whatever level should do to secure and protect citizens this particular season?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, whether it is safety or security, life is involved. And we are looking at threats to the life and property of the people, whether in Xmas time or in any other festivity whatsoever, or in any time within the year. It is important that government at all levels should show responsibility. Of course, using all the necessary authorities and agencies, including the Federal Road Safety and the security agencies, to ensure that the issue of safety and security is tackled. And in my state, I can say that we've shown the highest level of responsibility in this regard. We're looking at ensuring that that very mandate under the Constitution, that is the security of lives and property, which is the actually primary reason for government, is actually guaranteed. And so government is looking at ensuring that programs of the state are tailored towards ensuring that the dignity of the human person, the life of that person is not tampered with. And what are we doing? We are looking at providing the environment. If you are talking about security speaking, government is looking at social security measures, empowerment programs, looking after the old people, looking after the vulnerable ones, including the children, like you did mention. But government is also looking at fortifying the security architecture, ensuring that there is synergy, that is collaboration among the security agencies, whether paramilitary, whether military, whether of the armed forces, whether they are of state government or federal government, see how to bring them together through deliberate collaborations and patronages and all of that. And that we have done fantastically well in the Ebonyi State. All the agencies are working together as if we are brothers and sisters, as if they are even state government agencies. And that has really enhanced security in our place.
Okay.
Yeah, but beyond this, we are taxing government officials to know that service to humanity is the essence of governance. And so what do? You have to be an ordinary person, even though you are in government. That is to say, you should know that that person in the street is even much bigger, much more bigger than you as an office holder.
Well, so it's interesting. My apologies. It's interesting that you put it that way because, I don't know, many people just have this assumption that once they are in a particular position, especially when they have that office and they have that card and they have that role, they seem to take it like, there is nothing. Those in government, well, you've spoken for those in government. Politicians who are not in government, I don't know if they think it's exactly the same, Mr. Okoli.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, the topic is a wonderful one, safety. But again, saying it's during Christmas is something I want to address because It's not proper that we have to talk. Is it because we're in this Christmas period? It's safety generally. Like my gentleman said, from January to December. I'm going to talk from my side of the country. I'm from the southeast. You know, it's safety during big occasions. Majority of the southeasterners go troop down during occasions, like in the last Guba elections. A leading candidate was abducted since September till now. We don't know where he is.
Is it one of those mentioned by Honorable Chris Azubogu on the floor of the House, where they called the House urged the DSS, police, and others to end killings and kidnappings? He mentioned, the lawmaker made reference to one Mr. Obiora Agbasimalo,
Exactly.
and a number of others. I also remember that Senator Rochas Okorocha referenced the same insecurity and all of that in the southeast area and all of that, okay?
Yes. Like I said, safety and security, they are both the same thing, as far as I'm concerned. But again, it's not only security agencies. If the roads are drivable, then the security has been half solved. Then the personnel, they don't need to mount roadblocks. That is the best you can do. You don't have to mount roadblocks. Having said that, doesn't mean that the roadblocks are causing insecurity, because nobody has been abducted in the roadblocks.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It is in the bad roads. When you slow down to take care of a pothole, that is when these hoodlums will come in. So, like my gentleman said, they are trying their best in Ebonyi State. But then, what about the other part of the southeast?
Well, you are from the southeast, he is from the southeast as well. So I guess, it's now, perhaps then depends on what side of the divide you are.
Yes.
But you heard Madam talk the other time about the fact that when, for instance, an individual such as you mentioned has been, abducted and all of that, I'm just wondering the impact on the family, especially the children.
Yes.
From your experience, what kind of feedback are you getting from the family?
I cannot put words to that. It's terrible. They are devastated. It's even a surprise they are still moving on. It's horrible. The major part of the family missing, and you think the children are going to be well? No, of course not, they are not. But the thing that is shocking me in particular, and a lot of us, is the silence of our government.
When you say government is silent,
Yes.
you know that that's not the only case on our hands. We just referenced about 200 children still in captivity.
Exactly.
So, and the call has been government should do the needful to bring these people out. So one would say government is doing everything. He also referenced the part of synergy among security operatives in the Southeast, especially at least in his own state. Mm-hmm. Is that to say the government is silent?
Yeah, when an incident occurs, if you bring out the information, what you are doing, keep people up to date, that is when you are actually doing something.
Okay.
If you are doing something and keep it to yourself alone, I guarantee you are not doing anything.
Well, let me ask the road safety man.
Okay.
You are one of the security agencies in the nation.
Yeah.
How much information is any security agency, in your own opinion, able to give out that will not compromise the process?
Well, anytime we have reason to sit and discuss about security as a team, we are always very conscious of the perception of members of the public. And even within the circle, to what extent can you trust the other person? So when it comes to managing information,
Security information.
it has its own straitjacket line so that it will not filter into the wrong hands. But at the same time, it's also very technical and delicate too. Because I have reason to say it sometimes that we allow some information to filter or unmanage because we don't know the gravity or the extent to which an organization is handy with such information. I spoke at length sometimes about Federal Safety Corps.
Yeah.
When it comes to security architecture of this country, the role of Federal Safety Corps has been undermined because people don't really appreciate the role they play. Every crime starts and ends on the road. Even when you intend to hijack a plane, you must take off from the road. Even when you want to go through the sea, to go, maybe in the days of the Niger Delta approach, they will still get to the base and perpetrate what they intend to perpetrate. They will still use the road back. So while on the road, we gather a lot of information. But the information we gather is not something we just throw open. It's sent to the appropriate quarters. So managing it is beyond our own establishment. But the most important thing is that when it's gathered, I send to the appropriate, which is my own higher office, that these are the things I noticed on the road. Because we know it's quite delicate, because it's something that has to do with life and property. So when it comes to management of information by agencies, among ourselves, we try not to allow any form of negligence, because we know if it happens, and that is what has been given the problem in the upper side of the country now, because the other man could not even trust the next person that is giving the information.
But what you just said now about the role of the road safety being undermined, it is something that I think will give anybody, a little bit of worry, because, for instance, as you said, when it comes to the safety on the roads, it's your responsibility to get all the information.
Exactly.
So now, what he said now about bad roads being responsible for a sizable amount of insecurity or lack of safety on the roads, how does the FRSC take that on board or use that information?
We have our road survey unit where we take our time to check the road network. We check the bad roads, we check the bad design and bad construction. FRSC does not construct road.
Of course.
So what we do is to accumulate information and send to the appropriate quarters.
Okay.
But at times, like he rightly said, when the road is good and is free, insecurity is reduced. Because I remember there was a time there was an IG that said all block roads should be removed. The traveling time was saved, and insecurity was, because it's very difficult to stop someone that is on speed. But when you have reason to slow down, the tendency that people could come from every angle and get you down.
Okay.
So that is why government is so passionate about this, in as much as we have our own reservation, that when the road is extremely good, the indiscipline of road users brings about fatality. But when you are looking at, because we talk about safety and security now, so you have to balance it. And at the same time, we cannot say because we want to preserve lives and allow the roads to be bad. So it's all about giving advocacy in aspect of safety, that the roads are good and it brings about security. But when they are good and you are not disciplined on how to use the road responsibly, then it leads to crash, and crash leads to fatality.
Well, madam, you seem to be agreeing with everything.
Well, I'm soaking in all the information I'm getting.
Okay. And so in terms of the effect on children and the family, it's the Christmas season is a family season.
It is. What is Christmas without family?
Okay. And it's a time when people do a lot of traveling. For a very long time, for as far back as I can remember, you have to forgive me, my friends from the Southeast. It's almost like every Southeasterner has to go home. I want to believe that it's still the same.
I don't know if that's still the same with insecurity now.
Okay. But now, it was at some point. But now there are still those who will travel.
Absolutely.
Travel time at the festive periods increase.
Absolutely.
Okay. For family, what would be your recommendations to them? What kind of information do they need to have? What kind of things do they need to do? Precautions they need to take to ensure that they don't go too far with this?
Okay. If anybody must travel around this period, I think it's very important for you to make sure that I don't know how to put this. I was on the road about 2 weeks ago, we went to Ekiti, and my heart was in my mouth. And I can't imagine having my family with me, you know. I was really so conscious, I couldn't even shut my eye for a second. So if you must put your family on the road, on our Nigerian highway, in this time and this period, you must make sure that, number one, you have a very good vehicle. You don't just put a car that you've been driving with and around Lagos and you just hit the express and say you're going to even Ibadan. It must be in a very good condition. Then again, secondly, I'm also very, I also would advise that, what do I mean now? That family should make sure that the children they are traveling with, they are well strapped. You don't sit in the car, even as Oga, and just sit in the owner's corner and say that I'm fine. You must use your seat belt. I call it safety belt. It's not a decor. It is not part of a decoration of a car. It is a tool to be used. So from the point where you're taking off, strap the children. Strap yourself. If you as a driver, you're strapping up, then why would you leave the children like a moving object in the vehicle? And of course, very important that the route you're taking, you had mapped it out in your head. Because at times, what you see is not what you get. There are times that you had even gone ahead in your mind to say, okay, this is how I will take this Orebini road. And you get on Orebini road and you start the traffic from maybe, where will I say now? My geography is reminding me, where is the nearest, you know, and you now start crawling from there. So you must be ready for any eventuality as per traffic. Then again, psychologically wise as well, I think it's emotionally draining for children to put children on the road for more than 4 hours. Even traffic within Lagos State, it's tough. Leaving children in the car, you know, they're tired, they want to stretch and all of that. And even for the older ones, sitting in the car for so long right now, it's not even advisable anymore. And it's not like back in the day that you can drive off the road, park, want to stretch. Nobody wants to stop on the highway. You just want to move. So we are talking about the psychological, the physiological, and of course the emotional state of the entire family.
Well, before I come to the gentlemen in both in power and in opposition, let me come to you, Mr. Ogunbemide. SBM Intelligence, released a report not too long ago and talked about what they called identified dangerous roads. Biniore Highway, Bini Aucho Kene Highway, Kefi Akwanga Highway, Akure Expressway, Abuja Abaji Lokoja Road, Zaria Sokoto Guzo, Bauchi Tafa Balewa Highway, Ukare Takum Road, and Minakotongora Road. And so, talking about roads, these roads have been identified. You may only be able to speak to what happens in Lagos and environment, but I'm sure you hold meetings with national sector commanders as well. So in terms of travel advisory, do you have a way of giving out information to people who are going to be using roads for highways to look out for or to watch?
Yes, that's the role that they call public enlightenment office in Abuja has been doing, traffic advisory units. And every morning, like we have in Lagos, I have a particular unit that talks about the various road network and the condition and the traffic flow. And that one is an expansion when it comes to national level. It comes from there because they have daily reports of what the road is from every commander and units. And it's the responsibility of that particular office to tell the entire world. We have a platform and we have our national radio too that reeled out all this information to members of the public. But while you are trying to reel out the various routes, I wouldn't know the aspect. Is it as it affects security or safety?
Oh, you already said it. You said there is a nexus that there can hardly be safety without security. You talked about it the other time.
Exactly.
If the road is bad, the road cannot be safe, and if the road is not safe, then there is security vulnerability.
Because if they are being categorized as dangerous routes because of bad roads, I know federal government is doing palliative virtually everywhere. That's what we are. Because I remember last year, I had reason to stop the construction work on Lagos-Ibadan Express. Not to stop. I don't have the authority to advise. And we were so mean about it, but they got the body language. Because there was a time recently that we spent close to 8 hours along this corridor because of irregular diversion, without considering the effect on the road users. So that was what we adopted last year. I think towards the 20th of December, I was just watching one international news, and I was informed that the Prime Minister directed all construction to stop to enable people to travel freely during Christmas. But coming down to our hand here, they would tell us they have targets, and they must meet up with their targets. So what about the comfort of the road users? So that prompted our decision and said, all construction work must stop. And it stopped. You agree with me, when you are traveling home last year, that from 23rd, the movement was very smooth. I wouldn't know what happened in other parts of the country. But from Lagos, at least Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, it was a very smooth movement until 30th, when we had a major crisis, when a gas tanker, blocked the road for almost 12 hours. So this year we have started. From 17th, you notice that the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway is now being realigned by Julius Baja, that's Lagos end. While that of Ibadan too, by 23rd, they will close down and open up. Because when gridlock is removed from the traveling time, we have enough time to play with while traveling. And that's what I also brought to Lagos. Because if it takes you 30 minutes from Ojuelegba or wherever you are boarding your vehicle from to Okara, you are proceeding on a trip to the east. You get to the east and ample time. But when you spend 4 hours within Lagos to get to Kara, you want to catch up with time, and that will bring about overspeeding. And when there's overspeeding, there's loss of control, there's crash. So truly, this traffic advisory unit, they are really doing well in Abuja, because we believe that when you have a first-hand information about your trip, just like you said, having an understanding of your route is very important. And that's what I've always advocated when we go to motor parks. When you are proceeding on a journey, ask the man that just returned the previous day, how is that road? So when you are getting to a particular point, your mind is prepared. They say Kefi so road is bad, it's not too good. You fine-tune your mind towards that. If you're on speed, you reduce your speed because you have been told ahead. That is also, information is quite jamming, and we don't joke with that.
Absolutely, and I guess that's the advice here for everyone who is taking a trip. Ensure that you do the needful. You're going to travel, you're going to go to places. Find out the information about the roads that you go, because that's the whole essence of this particular conversation. So, Mr. Oji, how do you take some of the information on board that come from multilateral security agencies in government? You know, there is the responsibility of the state, but then there are those who are also advocating that, wait a minute, the states don't really control any security apparatus, not even as little as the Road Safety Commission. Permit me using that little, word there. So when these information come, some also say that sometimes it is difficult for politicians or government officials to take some of these on board, maybe because of some, as he said, targets set for some contractors.
Yeah, if I were not a Nigerian, perhaps I was only an Ebonyi man, I would have said that this discussion appears strange to an Ebonyi man. The reason is that Ebonyi State has got no issue about bad road infrastructure at all. Under the administration of His Excellency Engineer Chief David Nwezumahe, our road network is intact. We call Ebonyi State a global village. So the moment you are coming to Southeast, if you are going to whether Cross River, you are going to Benue State, any other part through Ebonyi State, you can be sure that you've got a very wonderful road infrastructure.
I don't expect you to say any less. You are commissioner for information. I understand, but yeah. I'm just asking, you are the only one who is a government official per se here, who is, part of the policy-making process. So I'm just asking, when government gets such information as concerning safety and security, the natural, rather the default position of government most of the time, as far as many people are concerned, is to defend itself. There are those who will say, well, you are in government, so this is the most that you can say. But then if other people come with other information, unfortunately, no one is here, and I'm not expecting anyone to come and counter you. But in terms of policy formation and encouraging security officials in the state, federal security officials to do their jobs, what kind of partnership does the state put in, and how do we get people to be part of the security and safety process, especially for the youth side?
Yeah, our relationship, being a Ebonyi State government's relationship with security agencies has been very, very robust, I tell you. And that is one of the reasons why we have got a lot of things right in Ebonyi State in the area of safety and security. What we do is to ensure that we integrate the processes, in our policy. Of course, my ministry that is in charge of state orientation, giving people orientation, is always on duty, carrying out advocacies. And of course, we also try to get feedback, from the people about their responses and reactions to, all of these issues.
In terms of orientation for safety and security, what kind of information do you put out, and what kind of feedback do you get?
What we do is to have a synergy with all of these agencies responsible for all of this information. Then we have a kind of collaboration. We give back that same information to the people in the rural communities. We have our network, the PROs, the information officers. They'll go back through trunk criers, through traditional means, or to traditional agencies to educate our people. That in ember months, for instance, that's what we call it, you need to be much more conscious of your environment, especially strangers who are coming into the community. Some of them are not natives, so you need to be conscious of that, know those that are coming in. And those that are returning, you need to also brief them about the happenings, within the place. And for me, it is a judgment day. This period is a period for people to take account about what governments in their place are doing, talking about federal government, local government, and state government. And I think that any person who doesn't come home, in a year should think twice. If we are looking at putting government on toes, you should be able to, wherever you are, come back home to see what your government has done. Go back to where you are and see if it's possible for you to even relocate to your place. And that is going to be a clarion call to our people. Come back to Ebonyi State this festive period and see what government is doing.
You support the idea of people traveling during the Yuletide?
Very, very important. It's important they travel, because when you come back, you meet your people, peers, you meet friends, brothers, whom you've never seen for a long time, those even within and outside the shores of the country. So it is important that we do that. Once a year is not bad.
Okay. Mr. Okoli, do you agree with him?
Yes and no. Yes. And like he rightly said, he can vouch for Ebonyi State. But Ebonyi is only one in the 5 southeastern states. I'm from Anambra. The level of insecurity in Anambra is unprecedented.
Well, you would say that because, as I said to him, he is in government, you are in opposition. So it's only natural.
It's not about opposition, whether you are in government or not. You see, the insecurity is plain and glaring. It's not a government issue. It's not an opposition issue. The insecurity is unprecedented in Southeast as a whole, except they are not reporting it.
Okay. As a political consultant, my apologies. Yes. As a political consultant, the only thing that anti-state activists, or rather non-state actors, as they call them professionally, would want to do is to perpetrate lack of safety and lack of security in any environment. There are those who say that much of the insecurity that we hear about in the country, they are all largely politically motivated. And as a result, when you raise these issues, and he's saying people should come back to Ebonyi State, they have to pass through one state or the other to get to Ebonyi State. Exactly. If, for instance, they're going to pass through Anambra State, you are essentially saying that nobody should pass through Anambra State to get to Ebonyi State, just for instance.
That's not exactly what I'm saying. I'm talking out of experience of insecurity. A lot of people, I came back from Anambra State last night. I drove also.
Wow.
So, but I am telling you, Let me give you a typical example of why it is this much. A candidate is going on his normal campaign, a governorship candidate, Ubiora Basimelo, from his hometown, isn't it, in Newe South local government, to Asia Ihala local government. And he was abducted. Let me tell you something. I'm talking about information. I'm not asking security agencies to give a detail of what they are doing inside, behind the scene. No. The information I mean is acknowledge the fact that we have problems in our hand and the government is doing something.
But
I'll give you an example. Lagos State government, during these NSAS issues, always come out. Yes, we will constitute a panel that will look into this report and this and that, acknowledging something happened. But this one is completely mute. Nothing was said. They picked him up September 18. Till today, the state government hasn't said, hey, a candidate was arrested, was abducted. But the government is doing something.
Just on that, if the state government does not acknowledge, the National Assembly has acknowledged. And I think that
no, the National Assembly did not acknowledge that. Federal House representative of Ekusigo, Newe North and South, in the Honorable Chris Azobogo, made an appeal. That is not National Assembly acknowledging.
Okay.
But this is after a number of months.
Okay.
But all the same, that's not where I'm coming from.
My point on that, my apologies, my point on that is, when it was reported that the House of Representatives, not just of course, only one person has to move the motion.
Yes.
The House of Representatives resolved that the DSS and the police should step in to get things done. I haven't followed up on how far that information has been followed up by the security operatives that have been talked about. But the point that you're raising is valid. Now, in terms of safety in the season, what would be your counsel, especially to politicians? Because they have also been warned by several people that, look, watch out wherever you are going, especially at this festive season. Be careful, be circumspect, and all of that. As an opposition person, what would be your counsel to fellow politicians?
Yes, to fellow politicians, I would say if you must travel, go straight to where and what we are going to do. There is no room for that merriment up and down because of the security challenges.
Okay.
If you must travel, if you have the burial, go straight to the burial and then find your way home.
Okay. Well, for families, I mean, you've talked largely about families, and families can be in any field, including political families.
Yes. I know they have families.
It would seem like, from what the gentlemen have said, families of politicians, leaders, are largely vulnerable.
Absolutely.
What would be your counsel? What's been your experience following that particular space, and what would be your counsel?
My counsel will be that, I think politicians also attract a lot of attention to themselves. I think at this point and at this period, they should try as much as possible to do some kind of masquerading, if I may use that word, or masking. Try and protect the children, the family, your wives, not by creating noise around them, having security agency make noise, the siren and things like that. I think that is not going to work. And when you do that, be sure that they know that there's some VIP. So try as much as possible. They should quiet the noise around them. Protect the children, protect the wife, protect the parents, protect the entire family, because really it's one person from that family that is a politician, but the entire family is going to feel the pain, God forbid, if anything should happen, like the politician that had been abducted. Now, I can't even imagine the kind of Christmas the family is having right now, because there's a saying in Yoruba that says that, it's better that the person is dead than you looking for that person. So really, they should try as much as possible to just make sure that things are quiet around the family.
Well, just to take your final word on this, because we've gone quite far on this, Mr. Nguemide. So people are going to be traveling. And she's talked about the fact that they need to have a good car on the road and all those things. When people travel on the road, they don't use Hoovers. They use cars. They use vehicles that have tires.
Yes.
What are the things to look out for, in your opinion?
Well, the first, I would say, is making sure your vehicle is up to the minimum safety standard. That means, like she rightly said, if you have to travel, I love that word, that phrase, if you have to travel.
In other words, you may consider not traveling.
Because there was a particular year that people refused to travel, especially to the eastern part.
Yeah.
I started my career from Aba as a young officer, and I could recall that from Aba to other part of the east, and we're not even talking of interstate now, I'm talking within Abia State. If you see the movement from Aba to the other part of the east from 23rd, if you drop a pin, it will not reach the main, it will not reach the tarmac, the third road. And the same way they move, in January, they will still move back. But one fact is that it's not all that moves that return. And the year will still continue the following year. And that's why we have to be careful about this I must. There's nothing I must. There's nothing that is inevitable. Because we are talking of movement. We are not sure of the status of our vehicles. Like you have said, a gridlock that could keep people on the road for 8 hours. What about the Earth challenge? So many people lost their lives in the course of that inconvenience because somebody put a bad vehicle on the road, especially this articulated vehicle. That's why we've been doing a kind of mop-up in the last few months, that all those trucks that are not good, I just tried to discuss one with her at the background about some trucks we have been arresting of recent. If such, okay, not far-fetched, the one that happened 30th of last year, 30th December, for more than 12 hours. Please, if you know that your vehicle is not fit to be on the road, don't let it get close to that road. That's one thing, mostly these articulated vehicles, because we have done a lot, we have given enough advocacy. And for the smaller cars, the tendency for overloading is always high. Family, I must move with my entire family. It's even risky that you put all your eggs in one basket. Somebody will say, I can't separate my family. But with one sweep, the crash can take the entire family. We've been advised most times that if you have tendency to separate them, let them travel differently. But if you are very sure that you are a good manager of, because that's where defensive driving comes in, you can be sure of yourself. What of the other road users? So if you're sure that you can manage all other road users around you, then you can proceed, but make sure there's no overloading.
I just want to be asking a question. If I can control my driving, can I control the other person's driving?
Yes, you can. That's what we call defensive driving. Ability to be able to drive in the midst of all the dangers without endangering yourself.
Interesting.
Because you must have foresight, you must be alert, and you must have correct judgment. And above all, courtesy and carefulness. If you have all these factors, in Western world, nobody drives one vehicle. One man sits inside his car, drive for the one ahead, drive from the one behind, and the one that is coming the opposite. That means from your seat, you think for the remaining three.
Yeah, essentially giving us lectures here.
Absolutely.
I hope the politicians are
We
taking
need
notes.
it. We all need it.
Well, gentlemen, I don't even know. It's definitely something to keep in mind consistently throughout the season, because at the end of the day, Nigeria belongs to every single one of us. I have to thank you, gentlemen, for being here. First, let me do the ladies' first thing. Bola Edwards is a child safety and security expert, and she's also convener Strap and Safety
Safe Child Foundation.
Child Foundation. Thank you for your time
You're
this
welcome.
morning. Stanley Okoli, right beside her, is a political consultant. Thank you so much for your time. We've also had the pleasure of Mr. Olusegun Ogungbemide, who is the Lagos Sector Commander of Federal Road Safety Corps. Thanks for joining us today.
Pleasure.
As well as Uchenna Oji, Commissioner for Information and Orientation in Ebonyi State. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Sunrise continues after now. Please stay with us.
You're welcome to
That's our next item on today's lineup of program, Sunrise. The Electoral Act Amendment Bill has been on the table of Mr. President for a bit now. The National Assembly on the 9th of November passed the much-anticipated Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2021 after both the Senate and the House of Representatives deliberated extensively on the report of the Conference Committee on the bill. Now, the Senate passed the harmonized version of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, and the passage followed the consideration of the report of the Committee of the Senate and the House of Representatives on that bill. It's been at the table of Mr. President for a while now, and the questions people are asking is, the Electoral Act Amendment Bill to be a law or not to be a law? Two gentlemen we'll begin this conversation with this morning. Chukwuma Izala is a legal practitioner. He joins us here in the studio. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
As well as Ezekiel Yaetok, founder Nigeria First. Thank you for joining us today. Good morning.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
Okay, but let me begin with you, Mr. Izala. First of all, are you concerned? Are you as concerned as several people are that this bill may not see the light of day as a law? They reference, of course, you are aware, the fact that the president had refused to sign an Electoral Act Amendment bill before.
Yes, it's a very unfortunate position. In 2019, the president said, oh, no, I will not sign until after my election. Before then, it was why it's more surprising. Mr. President had contested election 3 times, lost, and was not happy with the system. And he took the intervention of President Jonathan to right the wrongs in the electoral laws and in the operators of INEC for there to be a credible election. And we were thinking that Mr. President, being a beneficiary of such, would really want to do something. We want to improve on what President Jonathan did. And one is surprised that Mr. President or that people that are handling the affairs do not want to look at that area. And what do you have? If you recall, from 1999, we were having issues, we were learning, even from 1989 to 1990, we were learning how to transit into democracy. We continued up to 1999. 2003 was a very bad system. 2007 was very bad, the worst election Nigeria ever had. And we are now going into 2023. And sometimes it will be unfair to say that the way generals are handling their affairs may not be the best, because President Obasanjo did the same thing. And President Buhari is also doing the same thing. So where is it leaving us to? But I think President Buhari's friends should come in to assist the system. They should inform him that this is not issue of military also trying to truncate democracy. I'm sorry I'm bringing it at that level, but the coincidences are too similar for us not to ignore,
Well, there are many things to unpack in this conversation. Let me check if Mr. Yaetok is on the same page with you on this. Mr. Yaetok.
I think my page is even more serious and deeper than his. And it pains me that people that should be at the twilight of their stay on earth, who should be thinking in terms of what to do to right the wrongs they would have done in the past, people who have been in the position of power that they are today, so they are not like getting to the office for the first time, people who are old enough to see and feel the pulse of the nation and know what people are going through, people who should understand what governance is, whether it is military or civilian. It's about governance. Mr. President, who should know this more than any other person, he's been a military head of state. Number one. Number two, like my brother Chikuba said, he's contested election on 3 occasions. He's felt the pains. He's seen the betrayals. He knows the agony of injustice. He should come in, and 6 years after, we are still asking, will he or will he not? He makes me to really, really regret, as it were, the loss of a man like our former president, Yaradua. A man who comes in, he came in for the first time, but he says, I'm not satisfied with the process that brought me to office. They wanted to give him a national honor. He said, you cannot give me the national honor at this point in time. I need to be able to do some things, at the end of which you judge me and then see if I'm good enough or not, and honor me rightly or wrongly. When we have this sort of antecedent, and then we have President Buhari, and today, 6 years after, we are still debating. As we advance in this discourse, I think I'll be able, by the grace of God, to bring up a few things that the nation should know. Because all these things that we are doing, I think the time has come when enough has to be enough.
Well, the issues being raised here, Mr. Nyeto, concern the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, which is the platform on which politicians ride to get into office, to be able to do things, effect the kind of change that Nigerians are expecting. So whatever the information is, how does it help our cause of ensuring that this bill is signed into law? First of all, what are your own concerns? There are those politicians, maybe in office or not in office, who have issues with certain segments of the bill before Mr. President that will only become a law at just one signature. So in terms of the concerns that have been expressed, do you have any concerns about certain segments of the law? The instance that is present, of course, prevalent, of course, is the part of the direct primary, where both politicians, both in power and on the other side and in opposition, are saying it's supposed to be at the behest of the political party, not something that should be a matter of law.
Good. Let me give a little context that will help people to understand, because when somebody says something, you need to know if the person is informed or not. So, number one, I've been a very good party man. I was in the PDP. I rose to the position of being the Ward and Local Government Congress Committee chairman of the PDP to one of the states. If you're into party politics, you'll understand that that's one of the most sensitive assignments you could have. Being one of the 36 or 37 people that set up the Ward local government, without which you cannot go to the state, you cannot go to the national. I've been that good a party man. Number two, I have also been into party administration. I was a pioneer national chairman of Young Democratic Party. Number three, I have contested elections on 2 occasions for the governorship of my state. So as a party man or a party administrator or a player in the electoral process, I believe I know what I'm talking about experientially. With that context, let me come to electoral bill. The greatest problem that we have in our politics with respect to election is collation of results. We've not been having collation of results. We've been having allocation of results. So no matter what you do, you just lose interest, because you know that when they get into the collation hall, they're going to allocate the marks. So everything that we did at the polling units were just mere formalities. Then INEC came up with this issue of electronic transfer of results from the polling unit. And instantly, Nigerians said, good. You can see the spirit, the upbeat, and everything. The National Assembly said, no, we will not. Nigerians said, yes, you will. National Assembly said, no, we will not. Nigerians said, yes, you will. And when they saw the resolve in the minds and the eyes of Nigerians, they went to Plan B. In the Plan B, all of a sudden, they realized that, oh, there should be only direct primaries. They just wanted to inject something that they know will not fly. I've been national chairman of a party, like I said. And the issue of direct primaries, you need to tell me who is going to bear the cost. It's a good thing, extremely good. That's why party says we can have direct or we can have indirect, depending on the situation we find ourselves, depending on the peculiar circumstances. And do we really understand what direct primaries mean? Do we know who sets up the different electoral colleges that will supervise or superintend over the direct primaries? Do we understand these things? Do we know that the parties are in the pocket of, it's like local government election. We know that governments sit down, they have election, and they write the results. So this joy that we are having is not because the National Assembly, in my opinion, wanted to have a credible process. No, don't be deceived. They wanted to inject something that will make them achieve what they wanted to achieve ab initio, which is that there will be no transmission of elections from the polling units. That's the game. That's the game. Nothing else. Any other thing we are doing is just a means to an end. Number two, when this clause was injected, the president has a liaison person between the National Assembly and the presidency. He heard the debate. He has a National Assembly that says, tell me to jump and I ask you how high. So Mr. President could very easily have told them, no, this is not okay, don't do it. He kept quiet. It's a game. And what I want Nigerians to know that this game, just like in the first, we must rise up peacefully in an organized manner and let them know that government is not their property. Okay. Government is our property. We send them to oversee a process for us. Right. So what I'm saying is that that bill is going to be signed. It's going to become an act. Okay. Whatever it takes. So all this game that they are playing is not going to go far. That's my take for now
or not to
on
be
this.
Part in a bit of the Sanya talk because anyway, so he said as far as he is concerned, it's the election, the collation of results that is the big issue. But collation of results comes after elections have been after votes have been cast. The direct primaries element, for instance, is an element that comes in before the election itself. And there are those who also say, perhaps that's where we should actually begin the whole process from. The process of selection of those to go into office. Because if we miss it at the level of the people to vie for office, the people only have the option of between the devil and the deep blue sea, so to speak.
Yes, party primaries is as important as the main elections, especially in this climate where you have sometimes 2 or 3 major political parties in every area. So the support of party or what you do with the parties are also of utmost importance. However, going back to the problem we have now, or the crossroad we have now, where in the wisdom of the National Assembly, they have injected it into a bill to say that parties must conduct direct primaries. Now, they have thrown a carrot for us to start debating whether there should be direct primaries or not direct primaries. And my brother has stated that it was just a ploy to ensure that we don't have credible elections or that we don't have transmission of elections so that people will start battling on that one. Now, if we look at the merits of direct primaries, very wonderful idea. Unfortunately, the Honorable Attorney General, and that is to say that they have already said from day one, they knew they didn't want to. The Honorable Attorney General of the Federation has written to the presidency to say, don't sign because of direct primaries. And what does it mean? You were part of it. The executive was part of the current bill that came out, just like my brother said. There is no way the executive did not know what they were going to put. And remember that it is an APC-controlled National Assembly. And National Assembly has always stated that whatever the president wants, as long as it is good, they are going to get it as a bill. So what happened? Is it that the president did not make any input? Or is it that the followers of the president did not know that the Attorney General and the president will not want direct primaries? You see, it's a very big confusion at this stage. Direct primaries has its own little problems, but it has other benefits. If you look at what we had in 1990, option A4 was more of direct. All the political parties must ensure that there is direct primaries to select their party flag bearers, and it worked very well. This issue of direct primaries is just a modification of that option A4, which people really wanted. People were looking at the finances. What is the finance? What is important? The money they steal in Nigeria is more than what you're going to use to get to the direct primaries.
You have to verify or validate who steals this money. You're a lawyer. Yeah. So you know the implication of saying something that you cannot verify.
No, I have not mentioned anybody's name.
You said there is stealing.
I said people steal a lot of Nigerian money, and it is true.
How do you know?
No, how I know is that, yeah, very good. How I know is that I know that many of them come out as ex-governors and they have fleets of airlines.
But they have
private jets.
There's no proof. No one can prove that, okay, this is exactly what happened. You are a lawyer,
My brother in the United States, as well as in Nigeria, if I am doing business today, and maybe my average income from that business is 50,000 naira in a month, and the next thing I have a private jet, and you're asking securities to prove that I stole money. It's me that should prove how did I buy private jets.
So who is asking the governor's question?
That's the problem. We still have that corruption. So now, since the security agencies have failed in asking these governors that overnight, these senators that have overnight become very rich, since they cannot do that work, let them allow the electorate to, because they will come back with the same loot to come back to rule. Allow the electorates to do that. The electorates can do that since you cannot. And if the electorates can do that, it is by way of allowing the current bill as it is, so as to give powers to the people to chase away any governor, to chase away any minister, to chase away any president that fails to function.
Now, one of the things that the president promised is that he's going to bequeath a legacy before he leaves office. And there are very many people, I don't know if you agree, who say that this instrument, this Electoral Act Amendment Bill before the president, has all the elements of making it a legacy instrument of the president for Nigerians. Do you agree it's very strong enough a legacy?
Oh, it's a very strong legacy. You see, we've been improving in the electoral laws. Now, take for instance, in 2018, we had one that came, and President Buhari said he was not going to sign. That one also has electronic transmission. Now we have beavers, and we have people that have modeled us something to get to where we are. Look at Anambra election. People wanted somebody to be governor, and he won because of the beavers and some other modifications. Now this time, it is to validate, to ensure we have an improved version of electioneering and of voting. This is where we are in the Electoral Act, in the Electoral Bill before the president. And if somebody is using direct primaries to truncate that, it will be an unfortunate thing, because what it will be is that, because the sophistication continues to increase. In 2007, we said we had the worst election. In 2023, it may be a very terrible one. It's likely going to be a very terrible one. And what does it translate? There may not actually be 2023 if we continue in the trajectory we are going into. Why will I say there will not be 2023? In 2007, Nigerians were trying to learn politicians. By now, you already know that most parts of Nigeria are now engulfed in crisis. What is the remote cause of this crisis? The remote cause of this crisis is simply because there is no governance. And why is there no governance? Because government is not accountable. And why is there no accountability? Because people do not have voice or vote in choosing who is going to be their elected representatives. And that is what the Electoral Act is seeking to enthrone.
Okay. Well, Mr. Nyaitok, you said that there are some injections which are like, what do we call it now? Secret agenda, if I can use that term, of some politicians to ensure that they put in certain things that they want in the system. So have you been able to identify some of these things?
Yeah, it's very, very easy to identify. Politics, you call it a game of interest. And there's what you look at and call, self-preservation. How did you get into office? What sort of laws will disenfranchise you? What sort of laws will be good for you? The law that you have you made it for yourself or for the generality of the people? Now, like I said, the law of self-preservation means that I will not make a law that will rope me. A good number, this is, you were asking my brother to prove that the people stole. That's a very interesting question, and I'm happy with the answer he gave you. I got into office owning one house. Everybody knows my salaries. Next 4 years down the line, I have a private jet. And you're asking, did you steal? No, he didn't steal. His prayer, miracle brought it down. Anyway, that said, coming to the issues we're discussing, the first thing you'd realize is that with free, fair, credible elections, with all due sense of responsibility, over 80, if I'm being extremely conservative, if not 90% of the people in National Assembly will not return to the House. And how do you expect them to, after amassing enough wealth and being ready for the game of buying the players, the game of, look, whatever is done, the electoral officers will just sit down and then cook up the results and they announce it, go to court if you want. After they've prepared that very well, you're not asking them, no, go to what you call direct transmission of results from the polling booth, which is not their turf, is not their strong area. They're not going to do it. They will not do it, except the people say, you've got to do it. Let me tell you something about what we celebrate so much about direct primaries, indirect primaries. Like I said, I've been a player in this industry at all levels. And the question is, what is the concern? I'll give you just 1-2 illustrations that will help you understand my mindset. There was a man called Dr. Mimiko, and he was a minister. And there was a sitting governor, PDP governor, under PDP government at the center. And this man said, I want to contest against the sitting governor. And it sounded like suicide. How? He took a non-existent party, Labour Party at that time, non-existent. Within 4 months, he ran a campaign where he was able to defeat the incumbent by the final judgment by a margin of over 60%. What's the prognosis of what I've just said? We have 18 political parties. Why do we always think that you must get a ticket in one of the two? Because they are the two that have capacity to manipulate results, to strangulate the will of the people, not because they have that capacity to do what the others can do. Now, if you are disenfranchised in party A and there are 18 political parties, and you know that you are popular with the people, you know that if you take up an election, you will win. What do? You leave the party and go and take another party and run the election. Once you do that and they do direct transmission of results, you are going to win that election. So direct transmission of results has to be stopped. So all this celebrating of, the process of choosing, there are 18 political parties. When I left and joined ADC, for instance, people were like, oh, how are you? I said, I'm loved by the people. Just wait. When the people speak at the polls, whatever they say is fine by me. I was confident because of this electronic transmission of results from the polling unit. Because I don't have that capacity to go into that, where they are collating results to be able to, negotiate and bargain. I don't have that capacity. But it's just like President Buhari, who came and said, look, I have 10 million votes waiting for me.
Okay. Well, I'm pretty sure that we're going to get Mr. Nyatok back. I guess that's electronic transmission. Well, electronically transmitting his voice and face. That's why we're having that issue. Well, you heard all that he's saying, and people are actually as concerned about the electronic transmission of these results. And it really is a concern. There is no doubt about it. But then there are those who are also demonstrating concern that, look, talking about this electronic transmission of results is a good thing. But then there are still those other, little elements in the law that says there still have to be some filling of forms that still have to go to the center before, to validate the transmission.
Yes, there has to be a paper trail. It cannot be all electronic. In any election, there's usually paper trail. In case there is an allegation, or in case there is a failure of any particular area or any particular system, you revert to that one. It's very important. And that will also bring us into who are going to be involved, who are the stakeholders, who are INEC officials that are going to carry out this duty. Because no matter how best you have the laws, if you don't have good operators of the laws, for instance, if you don't have the good ones, they can truncate the electronic transmission of results. And that is why we think that the list that the president sent to the National Assembly is not a good one. It's not the type that can, even when he signs the Electoral Act, can operate that Electoral Act with all sincerity.
Why do you say so?
Yes, why I say so is
it a question of timing or choice of
no, the choice of persons. Now, election is next year. It's February 2023. I mean, everything about election is next year. And some of us thought that the president, take for instance the Anambra election, you have somebody like Professor Ibano, who conducted that election despite all the challenges. He's dropped. He can't continue. Look at Muazu. He's dropped. He can't continue. And these are people with the experience. And when you ask people around the INEC, you see that these are people that ought to continue. The election is here, and you're bringing new people. We also have a lot of them in the states, a lot of recent electoral commissioners who may go, and many of them did wonderfully well. Look at the one in Akwa Ibom State. We've been talking about election rigging, and nobody has ever been prosecuted. But in Akwa Ibom State, a professor was successfully prosecuted and jailed, and another one is about to be prosecuted and jailed. Where have we seen it in Nigeria? And that one is not being elected or is not being nominated to go into to go in as a national commissioner. Where are the people you are going to? You're bringing fresh people, some of them nominated by politicians. So what are you aiming at? You are now getting into a system where people will not accept the election. And why it pains me so much is that President Goodluck Jonathan nominated people like Professor Jega. Jega brought people like Professor Iban, all of them to advise. And some of these people were the people that ensured we have a relatively good election that brought Buhari. Why would President Buhari not improve on what? Why would he not look around within the system and see those that are tested and bring them up?
But don't forget, I'm sure you know, the president is just one person.
Yes.
And there are 200 million people, almost 500 lawmakers.
Yes.
He can only see as much as a person. So, as you said, he will need people like you, members of his party to advise, if I can use that term, to prop up people for him. You would remember how the former governor of Lagos State, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, received people such as the vice president without never knowing them as members of his cabinet. So someone has to recommend someone to someone. So I'm just wondering, how you would what's the process, for instance, of bringing people into such a system as INEC? Are you by any chance calling for an amendment to the INEC Act as well?
No. There is already a bill, and which we said it's okay for now. But I mean, we can still continue. Laws can be changed anytime. Some sections of the laws can be amended.
I'm asking that just to find out if the president in any way broke any law by nominating those people.
No. He didn't break any law. But what is important this time around, some of us are saying that president has good intentions for Nigeria. And if you have good intentions for Nigeria, some people will say, what is the proof of the good intention? Like you just asked, what is the proof of stealing? What is the proof of good intentions for Nigeria? Part of the proof of good intentions for Nigeria is to look at who are you appointing. If you say, will he know everybody? He will not know everybody, but he can as well ask, when he's dropping Professor Ibano, he will ask, why are we dropping this person? Is it that he didn't do well, or is it because he didn't work for the party? Do you understand? The commission has been working. When Muaz was being dropped, you will ask, why am I dropping? I mean, they are supposed to be present. Mr. President has gone for the second tenure. These people are supposed to go for their second tenure. So why are you not nominating them this time around? And everybody knows, every politician knows that these people are credible. We have some of them that are in the states. We know some of them that are very credible. The facts speak for themselves. The president will first of all ask, because he has good intention, I believe. I have good intention for Nigeria, so I believe that you have good intentions for Nigeria. I believe that Mr. President has good intentions for Nigeria. And if all of us, those people that are advising him, are we saying that they don't have good intentions for Nigeria? Don't they like the corporate existence of Nigeria? The security issues are all there because of misgovernance. So I think they are all listening. Let them take back, let them advise Mr. President once more. Take back that list. Include those people that they ought to include. Let them restore credibility to the electoral system.
Okay.
Let them improve on what Jonathan did. This is just a simple thing Nigerians are asking.
Okay, Mr. Yaitok, do you agree with him? He's talking about the people who will run the process, who will act, who will, how do we use the word now, execute the law that is going to be passed, especially talking about the INEC Electoral National Commissioners.
You see, in deciding the sort of people you should bring into INEC, the very first thing you should realize is that you need to profile the jobs that they are supposed to do. And we have had electoral processes in a way that we look so much at individuals and we don't look at the processes and the systems. Today in Nigeria, if you have direct transmission of results, nobody cares who the collation officers are. Nobody even wants to know. Nobody cares whether they're even there, whether they're even needed at all. I don't know. Okay? So, number two, what are the functions of these people? We keep talking about integrity of the people. A lot of times, my mindset is a little bit different. Bring in ICT. Bring in technology. Allow people to go to the polling unit. Make it such that the process of choosing your candidate, your preferred candidate, on the ballot is easy. You click it. That click, which is transparent, the integrity of that process is known by everybody. Everybody has confidence in it. It goes straight to INEC office. So whoever is in the intermediary knows that he cannot play any silly game. And as a result, you don't even want to take a chance. You say for whatever it's worth, if you do this, it's either you are incompetent or you are criminal. And this is the results that will come out. When you do that, nobody, look, in America, who is the head of the electoral system? Nobody knows. Nobody cares to know. Nigerians don't care who you are. All they want is somebody that means well. Somebody who comes and knows that my responsibility is to set up system strategies and processes that will give this country free, fair, credible elections. That's all we want. And they come in and all they are looking is, looking at the different processes and then coming up with, where there is a weakness, you strengthen it. Where there is a certain outdated, information, you update it. This is what we want to know. But what we have is people who think more of their parties, people who think more of what they can gain for themselves and not to see the responsibility of state. And let me, at this point, push a little bit something that you advanced before the enemies of progress cut me off. Legacy for Mr. President. I want us to understand this country, how it works. There was a man called General Abdul Salam. Nobody cares what he did or didn't do in office. That he handed over on time. Nigerians hail him anywhere he goes. One action, he handed over on time. There's a man called President Jonathan. We talk about 16 years of the wastages of PDP and everything. Anywhere that President Jonathan goes today, to the extent that even APC is lobbying him to come back. Why? He did one thing, just one action. He made one phone call, and everybody forgot his past, and they hailed him. Our President Buhari, I don't know what his family people are telling him. I don't know if he has honest friends and what they are telling him. To let him know that the 3 agenda he came up with, fighting corruption, security, the economy, I don't know any of those 3 that they can sincerely score him 50% on. Has he tried? Has he not tried? It's not about what you try. It's about the result that we get. The one action that he can take, and Nigerians will love him no end, is just one simple thing. Give us free, fair, credible elections and on time. Don't give us the black sheep, at night concept where, you were looking for the sheep and then all of a sudden you say, oh, it has been tied here because it was dark, we didn't see it. We want early enough. Just give us January speech. Tell Nigerians, I'm signing this, but there's an amendment I'm sending because of the cost of these direct primaries, because it's either got to be direct or indirect or hybrid. It's one of the 3. There's no fourth one. It's either direct or indirect or hybrid. You look at it, Mr. President, if it is direct, you are going to fund it. Forget about it. 500 billion, you look for it wherever it is. If it is indirect, you send an amendment to the National Assembly, but you sign this as a January gift to Nigerians. Sign the bill, send for an amendment. Within 1 week, you can get it, so that Nigerians have enough time to come out and prepare for the elections, and not for them to feel last minute. When everybody has gone back and relaxed, it's like, oh, this is not going to make sense. Then how many seconds to election, you now sign it. Nobody wants that. Okay. I think that Mr. President should be selfish for once. Think of himself, think of his legacy, and sign it because he wants Nigerians to know that he gave us a process that brought free, fair, credible elections.
Let me ask you, gentlemen, as we wind down this conversation, on an element of inclusion. You have, as you are a lawyer, Mr. Izala, and people talk about young people, including young people in the process, in the electoral process. We cannot talk about this enough. Not too young to wrong bill or not, do you see this Electoral Act Amendment Bill as in any way, whether remotely or directly, addressing the issue of inclusion, especially of young people, Nigeria's most populous demographic?
It didn't directly do anything on whether young people are going. And remember that the young people coming in or not coming in may relatively be a constitutional issue, in that the ages for the position of governor, president, senate, and all those, they are already in the act, they are already in the constitution, So it will only lead to the amendment of the constitution. The Electoral Act will not be able to do that.
I'm talking about the inclusion in the entire process.
But the inclusion in the entire process, there are things that shouldn't be an issue of law. The young people are in the majority. So it's a question of allowing, and that is why if you have a good electoral system, electronic transmission, direct primaries, for instance, the young people can now take over the process. But when you allow a system where a few people decide who is going to take what, who is going to represent, who is going to do this, do you understand? Mm. The young people and women are in the majority in the system. So allow direct primaries, you have solved that problem. So you don't need that. And just like when we're talking about the bill and the managers are the same. If you get a very wonderful bill and you have somebody who will go and truncate the system, you have not done anything, or you have not done much.
You heard Mr. Nye talk about introducing technology.
Yes, introducing technology.
That will, in a way, bring in the young people.
But who will do that? We have seen how people install cameras. Do you understand? Somebody say, I've installed cameras, and there are no cameras. So when you don't bring credible people who are going to monitor it, that is why, don't throw that one away. If you say you want a system, who will bring the system? Go and check all the systems we have. Which one is working? Because you don't have credible people that are doing it. You must have people who have the strength of character. You must have people who can employ the nice technology service to do it. But when you bring in people who don't have the intention, they will sabotage it at the end.
Okay.
That is just the problem.
Okay.
So we have to really understand that both American system was built by people who have the strength of character, who have the integrity to build it.
Okay.
It's not just there. Technology doesn't build itself.
Okay.
And getting the better technology is not just anything you get anyhow.
Well, Mr. Yetok, please speak to the youth element of this conversation. Do you see this bill, this proposition, answering the inclusion question as far as young people are concerned, whether remotely or directly?
I see it very, very directly, not even remotely. There are 18 political parties. Some don't even field anybody. You cannot hope to win an election if you have not made yourself popular. If you are popular, then you don't want to be disenfranchised because the money bags will hijack the indirect primaries. So what the young people want is, number one, allow direct transmission of results from the polling unit so that they don't need to go to APC or PDP. They can go to a small party, and because in their ward, they are loved by the people. And the moment you allow the will of the people to be expressed, they will become councillors. In their local government, they have been the youth leader of all organizations, and they are loved. But they will not be given tickets by any of the big parties. So allow direct transmission of results from the polling unit, and they will go to any of the other parties, pick the ticket, and they will floor the big people because the results count. So the young people are like, one thing we're asking of you right now is give us direct transmission of results from the polling unit. The second thing is that the young people will bring people, vote for people that they believe love them, care about them. There are a lot of old people that care about the young people. I'm not called National Youth Headmaster for nothing. I did not bring Young Democratic Party to the young people for nothing. What? I was not part of the young, not too young to be a run bill in the national for nothing, or the Akwa Ibom Youth Development Bill for nothing. They are not for my children. They are not for me. They are for the young people. I'm not the only person. There are a lot of old people that care about the young people. Yeah. So allow direct transmission of results from the polling units, and the young people will decide who they want to support. And not when they have finished seeking at the polling unit, you now go to the collation center and now go and manipulate figures, and their voice becomes
over and over
of
again,
no consequence.
Mr. Yetok, and we cannot thank you enough for your comments this morning. Ezekiel Yetok is founder, Nigeria First. Thank you so much. Truly appreciate your participation today, as well as Chukuma Izala, who is a legal practitioner. Thank you so much for coming and for your thoughts.
Thank you.
So, Sunrise continues right after now with another issue. It's about giving. What does that mean? We'll be back. Well, thanks for staying with us. That's the next conversation we're having. It's a season of giving. The holidays are the season of giving. Giving love, giving thanks, giving things. We'll hear more about that as the time unfolds. But if you cast your mind back, you would remember how it felt to receive gifts from your parents as a child. It only takes a moment to look into a child's eyes and see the joy the season brings. Where are we going? What are we doing? What are we eating? Some will argue that despite the consumerism the season really brings out the best in us, in people, the season may also lead one astray. It's all too easy to get so caught up in the good feelings of the system, in the season, that we lose sight of the point. Giving is not about good feelings. So, what are the thoughts we need to have in performing our acts of giving this season? That's why we have a lady and a gentleman with us this morning. Gloria Adaba is a personal development coach, as well as Pastor Abiodun Bamidele, who is of the Leaders Place Word Assembly. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Ladies first, so let's go there. When we talk about giving, the natural thinking is about giving money, giving food, giving gifts. I don't want to call them palliatives, but when we talk about giving, it's giving things. Is that all there is to it? Is there any more to the giving than to get something?
Thank you for that question, and thank you for having me. There are two parties when it comes to giving. There is the giver, there's the receiver. So on the part of the giver, there's an act of sacrifice. Because even if you receive something for free, it did cost somebody something. So there's an act of sacrifice on the part of the giver. There's also the motive with which the giver gives. Why is that person giving? Why are you giving? Why am I giving? Am I giving as an act of love or an act of a show? So motive is very important, and the giver should also know that there is sacrifice on their part. The receiver also has a part. The part of joy, like you talked about the children. When you receive something, you're happy, especially when it's not expected. So there's that part of it also. And then there's also the part of gratitude on the part of the receiver. So it also gives the giver that motivation or that encouragement that I have done well because you've shown gratitude as a receiver.
Pastor Bamidele.
You know, I agree with Gloria 100%. I would only like to add that there's still something that should still be in that value chain, and that is the word value itself. Because, you know, while I agree with all she said, 100%, what exactly am I giving is also another matter. Because sometimes people see this period as an opportunity to unbundle all the things
Clutter.
that are no longer useful, those things I don't need anymore. Sometimes it can be painful for you to see people giving out what they can no longer use. Not because they now have so much, but because that thing has lost quality and it has lost value.
To them or to the person receiving it?
To the person given. The person given now. This is no longer useful. Of course, that is relative, because what is not useful to me can be an excitement to the other person.
Absolutely.
But when you allow value to drive what you do, for instance, in the church that I lead, when we want to give out clothing, everybody knows that you need to present that cloth in a way that, you know, projects honor to the person receiving it. Not something that is dirty, torn, and all of that. So value must also be in context, because what I'm doing is not just a show of charity. I'm identifying with a brother, I'm identifying with a friend, I'm identifying with someone who is also created in the image and the likeness of God. So what I also give is also important. So that's why I will only add value, you know, to the...
There's something that you said that I will also want to take up with her, but let's start from there. You said giving is not just an act of charity.
That's right.
It's an act. What else is it?
Okay. You know, at the end of the day, charity, just like she said, can be driven by so many things. Number one of them can be show. I just want people to know that let people call me a man that is charitable, is a philanthropist. But beyond that, giving should be an avenue for you and I to initiate a sustainable system of sharing love, sharing care, selling hope, and selling comfort. Identifying the fact that life is not just all about me I and myself.
Absolutely.
I think all of this, if it is lost in the garment of giving, the essence is lost. So it's not a show activity. No.
Okay. You want to speak to that as well?
Yes, I just want to take that key word, and I actually thought about it before coming, which is sustainability.
That's right.
There's sustainability in giving. Yes, it's a season of giving, right? But it should come from something that has become habitual.
That's right.
It shouldn't just be within, oh, it's December, it's time for me to give. It should be something that I do every day, and I do it freely. So that's what I will take from what he said, and just add on that it should be a lifestyle, such that when we get to this season, it becomes like breathing.
Okay, but you know that when people give most of the time, especially individuals, philanthropists, as he mentioned,
Absolutely.
they are identified philanthropists because they are known to be philanthropists, and they are known to be philanthropists because they give to people. Now, so how do we dichotomize, whether as onlookers or as beneficiaries? How do we dichotomize? How do we differentiate between giving as a show or giving as a mark of identifying with the comfort and convenience of a needy generation?
Well, I would say that motive is something that is not seen. It's intangible. And if you're known as a philanthropist, fine. It's for you to keep that motive based on the act of love, not on an act of show. Because at some point, there is the temptation that becomes, oh, it's time for me to give again. But every time you come to give, see it as an opportunity and a privilege, because the dice or the coin would have been turned around and you would have been the receiver. And it's just an opportunity and a privilege that you are on the seat of the giver. So always see it as an opportunity to bless someone, to put a smile, to give joy to someone else. That should drive your motive at every point in time, deliberately.
But, you know, in terms of this whole giving for show or
Yes.
giving for, sincerely thing, there are people who point at politicians who give with the hope to receive votes or stuff like that. I don't know how you see that. What would you want to say to that?
It's when we were talking with Pastor before coming in here, we talked about leadership. And leadership is not dictatorship or ruling over people. Leadership is something that you do from leading yourself first and foremost. And when you do that, if giving has been, like I said, your lifestyle, it's been something you've been doing. At some point, you'll be recognized for it, whether we like it or not. It can be seen as a show for someone else, but you know it's a part of you, even when no one is there. So that leadership is more than a position. It's a lifestyle. It's something that you inculcate. And if you are such that even when people are not looking, you are a giver, it comes easy for you. And if you being voted into office, you get voted there, and then when you get there, you flip. It's like, okay, that was really a show. It wasn't something that was natural for you.
That doesn't end the cycle. Because people have these needs, they will always be happy to receive. I mean, you want to speak to that? Yeah. My apologies. They will also always be happy to receive from anyone who wants to give to them, irrespective of the motive.
Absolutely.
You are correct. And you know, while you were talking to her earlier, I just remembered a story, a true life story. Growing up, we had this woman living very close to us who complained bitterly to my mom. Without that complaint, we wouldn't have known what really happened. And what was the complaint? Now, a supposedly wealthy person in the community was having the wedding of his daughter. So this woman went out of her way to support that, event financially. But it was what happened thereafter that indicated what was the driving force. What was she complaining to my mom about? He said, I didn't know that this man is this stingy. When she did so, I gave this much. Now that I'm having the burial of my mother, see how much he has given me. So it became so clear that that initial giving was, so to speak, in quote, an investment. Waiting to reap. Because I have sized up this person. If I give him 10, in my moment of need, he should be able to give me 50. That didn't happen. So eventually, the motive came to play. Because you were asking, how do we know the motive? I will say that it is only God that can tell. But there are a few things you can see around people that seems to show us what drives them. For instance, if you're someone who will never give, except you have cameras around you, I think I will want to suspect that there's something driving you beyond love. If you are someone who, as you are giving with the left hand, you are placing a demand on the receiver with the right, I will be suspicious of the fact that there's something driving you beyond love. Now, coming to talk about what you said last, that people wouldn't care where it is coming from for as long as they are in need. And I want to say that it is that understanding that a lot of the leaders, so to speak, because some people that we call leaders really in this part of the world are not actually leaders, but that awareness, that knowing is what they are exploring to the maximum. They even want to ensure that the people stay at that point so that at every point in time, they need to look up to them. And like you said, a hungry man, we only gravitate towards that individual from whom he can get sustenance. But I want to say to everyone, listening to us this morning, sustenance is required at a point. Why? Because you need to be alive first before you want to determine, I want to do this and not. But that will not go too far. We are seeing events around the world that after some time, people will come to a realization that you are not giving them because you love them. You are giving them because you want to use them. And the time will come, when they hit the wall, they will always fight back. Check around the world. We are seeing all those indications.
Madam, so how do we move off from here? Because it's not just going to go away.
That's
It's
right.
a conversation that we're always going to have. Permit me to talk more from the, you talked about sustainability.
Yes.
In the development space, we always talk about inclusion. And when we talk about inclusion, we're talking about young people, women, and children. And these are the, generally largely vulnerable groups. So in this season of giving, any little gift will excite a child. It's a gift.
Yes.
Irrespective of where it's coming from or what the motive is, it is a gift.
Absolutely.
I am happy to receive it. What's the responsibility for parents here, irrespective of their social status?
That question is quite, because I'm a parent myself, and I give my children, like for me, giving is like a lifestyle, and they know, and this is where relationship comes in play. If you give your child something just to pacify the child and not really relate with the child, such that there is an understanding back and forth, your gift, after a while, they become immune to it. Let me explain what I mean. You do not relate with your child doesn't really know you, you're always busy, or have one thing or the other to do at every point. But whenever the child cries out for a need, you just say, okay, buy the latest iPhone. The child is excited for a while, but that need for relationship is something that should be like breathing for you as a parent, such that your gift would be meaningful. The child doesn't now see it as, oh, I'm receiving something else again, I'm not going to get what it is that is most important. So when we talk about a season of giving, it shouldn't be in just the tangible, but the intangible, and it should be a way of life. So as a parent, as you develop that relationship with your child, when it climaxes to the point of Christmas, your gift would also mean a lot, but your time would even mean much more, because when you spend time with them, play with them, make them feel loved and closer to you, it would mean a whole lot to them.
I'll still come to the woman part because there's something peculiar about that, because a friend has been sharing with me, and I feel it is something that needs a little bit more attention. We'll come to that one.
Okay.
So this last question and her response raised the question of what to give and who is giving.
All right.
What to give in terms of, is it tangible or intangible? We call it the season of giving. We call it the season of love. Well, there are those who also argue that we shouldn't really have a specific segment of our lives for giving or for showing love. But then the question of what to give comes to play. From what she said about me, when you give, for example, it will seem like the effect, the lifespan of that gift will only expire for as long
as the gift is there.
As the gift is there, or as the gift is exciting. Because if I had iPhone 1 now, and by tomorrow iPhone 2 is out, the lifespan of iPhone 1 has expired.
That's right. That's
so
right.
to speak, I'm just giving an example.
Perfectly correct.
So it then raises the question of what to give.
Good.
When is it appropriate to give the tangible things that people can touch? When is it appropriate, or how is it appropriate to give the intangible things that people may not be able to touch?
All right. Let me start these ways. You know, sometimes, some years ago, I was in it was a relationship summit, and one Professor Wushika was sharing. She said something that was a statement I went home with that day. What did she say? She said, fathers who are listening to me in this meeting, cultivate the habit of dating your daughters. And she explained what she meant by that. Give her attention. Let her know she's a person of value. Let her know she's someone of dignity. Let her know I'm not just here to pay your school fees. I also want to be part of your life. Tell me those good stories. Also tell me the bad ones. She said once in a while, take her out and have a good time together. She said, why are you doing all of that? Such that the day one young man wants to come and dangle any of that before her, she's used to it. Love and affection is something that is not commonplace. In fact, a few days ago, I started leading my people to start praying against the spirit of depression and suicide. Why? In the last few weeks, I have seen some of my friends send to me videotapes of about 3-4 individuals taking their own lives. And I was explaining to them, I said, what makes that to happen? That happens when a man is pushed to a point where the conclusion about his life is that life is worthless. That person may not need all of the money. It's not a car that might be what that person needs. It might just be a little of attention. How are you doing today? I just discovered that you are not in your best of mood. And I want to also say to some of us that are highly blessed, we feel we are up there, that your security man, that your housemate. Don't forget that they are also someone's children. So love, care, attention, hope, all of these things are gifts that no amount of money can buy. When you are now proceeding to the tangible, you are not a stranger to that person. Because the person is used to you sitting down. Yes, you are high there, you are the boss and all of that. But the person is used to, so you say, come on, tell me what is happening. I just discovered you are not really. Some of us don't care. For as long as I am good, I don't care what happens. So those are things that I even think are much, much more important. And you said it earlier that we shouldn't be waiting for a season, really. Maybe a season like this should just help us to intensify what we have been used to. So that would be my thought.
Okay. Madam.
Can I just add something to what Pastor just said?
Yes.
Every human being is a gift. Every human being is a gift. And like he said, some people, maybe because of societal or financial reasons, there are hierarchies. It doesn't make you more valuable than someone else.
That's right.
And it's very, very helpful, like he said, just re-emphasize the value of someone who is forgetting that they are actually valuable. And it brings me back to what you talked about, kind of weaponizing lack, and then when the gifts come, people rush to it. When someone is aware of their value, like you described about the daughter who is aware about her value, when people are aware about their value, they would be able to, not more just like the daughter, be able to say, you are dangling this thing, thank you for it, but I'll still see through what you need to do as a leader for me. So value, every human being is a gift. Every human being has value. And this season of giving, we should re-emphasize that value to people beyond the tangible.
I wanted to ask you about the feminine gender,
Yes.
giving to the feminine gender. I recently came across an information about, I think it's a United Nations championed sanitary pad poverty or something like that. That there are a humongous population of young ladies, young girls in schools who do not have access to those things.
Absolutely.
And I know that there are pockets of people in various aspects of our national lives who go out of their way to come up with these things to package and give to young ladies and all of that. How significant do you consider that to be?
It's personal. It's something that a woman would normally be ashamed to receive, but because of the lack of it, she would have to humble herself to receive it, depending on her financial status, or if she's identified to be amongst those who actually lack it. So it's actually personal, and there are some gifts also, when we talk about beyond what we see, that are also personal to ladies. And when you are giving a lady anything beyond what you can see, it depends again on the relationship you have. But speaking to what you just described, it has really become a major issue. We have lots of, because I have an NGO as well, it has become lots of people campaigning that women should have at least be able to take care of themselves every month.
How significant a challenge, well, for want of a better word, how significant a problem is it?
It's quite a significant problem. I'm also an environmentalist. We just came from a convention, a conference where the initiative are working on this plastic pad. It's actually reusable.
Okay.
Such that the environment, when it comes to disposal and everything, it has become very significant that even bodies that normally would probably focus on other things have discovered that this is becoming a problem in our society. And even where we have lots of displacement, maybe like IDP camps and poverty, areas that are quite poor and all that, it has also become a problem. And I would add that the lack of data it doesn't help issues, because we are not able to really, I can't really quantify. If asked the question, it can't really be quantified, but people that go around, philanthropists or NGOs that take their own time to see what are the common problems in this community, in that place. That's how we come up with the fact that this is a problem. But to be able to tell you that this is how significant, how big a problem it is difficult, but it is a major problem.
Well, Pastor Bamdele, we wanted to ask the question around who gives. We've talked about personal social responsibility, PSR. Absolutely. But then there is also corporate social responsibility, CSR.
Right. That's right.
We know that it has become an international discussion point in corporate organizations all over the world, such that if you're going to take a business decision, your CSR is a critical business decision.
Absolutely.
And governments recognize it. They encourage corporate organizations to do it. And one way or the other, I mean, there's incentives for it in society. So how does that differ much? This is a little problematic. But how does that differ much from what the politician, or rather the intending politician does, it's good. It's a fantastic thing that people do. I'm just trying for us to have perspectives to doing these things so that when corporate organizations are doing it, people understand and they do not just personalize it as just a corporate organization just giving them peanuts for, after, making profits.
This matter you raise is a very complex one, depending on from which angle you are looking at it. I'll also share a practical, experience. Years ago, an organization was actually, in fairness, thinking about how to make life more comfortable for their staff who live in a particular community. And the organization offered, we will do the road from so-so point to so-so point. It was shocking to discover that the leaders of that community were placing, very ridiculous demand on the organization that before you do this for us, you will first give us this much in terms of cash. That shows that it's a true life story. It's just that I don't want to mention the organization. This organization pleaded and pleaded, they will not budge. They had to now do a longer route to take that same route through another community. That suggests to me that there is a disconnect. What the organization wants to do and how the community finds themselves, in the midst of it. There's a misplacement somewhere. And that shows that there's a wide gap of communication. There's a lot of communication gap. But that is on one side. The other side is also the fact that, truly, my brother, when you go out there on the street, the truth of the matter is that the level of lack out there, we can't discuss it on a platform like this. So people therefore see every opportunity, regardless of where it is coming from. Is it a corporate organization? Is it an individual? And all of that, as an opportunity to take as much of what they think belongs to them. We talk about my part of the national cake. That is at the national level. Even at the community level, the people still have that sensing of, you are in our community and you are making this much. So this is an opportunity for us to situate us. But let me say that it's almost becoming a statutory thing. That if you want to really be relevant and you want to operate at a certain level, CSR is not something you can joke with. But I just want to say to as many who are decision makers listening to us this morning, when you're doing that, don't always assume you know the need of the people. Engage them. Because there was also another story of people thinking that a community actually wants water, went there, gave them boreholes. Months later, they went back to discover that nobody was using the borehole. Now, it sounds funny, but it's a reality. They called the women in the community. We have given you water, but you are still going to the stream. They say, Oga, that time we go to the stream is the only time we have to really bond and share community gist of what has happened. So that water you have given us is only disturbing our social life. So there's a disconnect. So even when organizations want to do CSR, please don't just throw projects at people. Engage the community such that you are not giving them light when they need water, or you are giving them water when they need light. Let there be a page where everybody can glide on.
It sounds funny.
Very interesting.
But I've heard something similar as well.
Absolutely,
in some, communities where the people say, okay, you need this. Yes, we agree that we need it. But before you do it for us, you have to pay us money. I still find that fantastic. But the bit that he talked about, connecting with the communities, as dicey and delicate as it is, it would seem like the corporates themselves are in a dilemma. We have to do this. We want to do this. But can we monetize infrastructure and give to the community? Because that's the way it's sounding. We cannot monetize infrastructure because we cannot document monetized infrastructure and consequently get tax rebate as a result of our CSR. So then it would seem like the corporates themselves are in a dilemma. The project is there, the vote for it is there, the community needs it, but then there are some elements in the community that are in the way.
Absolutely, and we heard that a whole lot. I've also heard another story of a community who refused to help someone because he's not from there. He was trying to do a borehole, a copper, got somewhere, wanted to do a borehole, and they refused. They said he's not from their place, he has a different motive. So we're talking about market research, really. And I want to reemphasize the issue of engaging the community. And it shouldn't be at like the peak of this season now or whenever you want to really do it at that point in time. It should come on gradually. Maybe visits to the community, developing a relationship, getting to understand the people of the community, the way they think, their lifestyle, and what it is they really need.
Isn't that an assumption that they don't know? I ask because sometimes the communities have their staff, their people, indigenes, working in these corporate organizations. So it is part of the reason for bringing the members of the indigenes of the community in the organization to understand what the community needs. So sometimes it's not because the engagement is not there, it's just maybe certain interests.
Well, that also feeds to the mindset of people. And those people, the community members that are within the corporate organization, might or might not really be living where the need is. Going to the grassroots and relating with the people that you feel they need something. It's obvious, okay, there's no water here. They go to the stream, like his example. They need a borehole, okay. I'm sure they'll be excited when we get a borehole. But alas, they're not. So it still boils down to that interaction, continuous one, not a one-off or based on assumption of a need that is seen continuously, because it might change, or you might hear something that would trigger, okay, oh, you guys go to the stream. What do you do? What if we do this for you? They will tell you, oh, that means you will be fetching water here. What does that mean? Explain to them. Well, that would be nice, but we actually also like the fact that we walk to the stream to discuss about this. Okay, should we, how about putting the borehole closer to the stream so you can still walk there? Does it help? So things like that. And I strongly believe that you get to the root of the problem. You can't really change people's minds when it comes to what it is you are intending to give them or what you feel they should receive with joy. You can only do your best, but make sure your gift adds value, and to do that, really deep and continuous engagement over the course of time before the actual act.
Okay.
Please, can I add an experience?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I remember, this is personal experience. When the branch of the church I lead, we got to a particular community, I don't need to mention it. One of the earliest things we did was to visit the Baale of that community. The man said to us openly that this will be the first church that will do this. And I said to my people, regardless of what you think you are, these people have been here before us, so to speak, are the owners of the community. We are coming into their community. Let's go and officially introduce ourselves to that. I can tell you just that simple act. Of course, we went with a small gift and all of that. What that translated to in terms of relationship and connection over the period. A lot of things will be happening. They will say, don't go to that particular place. They will be placing demands on other people, do this, do this. I remember there was a meeting we were to have. They said, no, that kind of meeting, because of the timing and all of that, cannot hold and all of that. We just walked up to Baale to say, we got to hear that things like this don't happen. We really want to operate with you and be sure, but I should mention to you, is this something that you probably want to give us a waiver for? He said, no, when we talk, it's not about people like you. We were all shocked. So that engagement shouldn't be at the point you want something or you want to do something. Absolutely. If you're in a community, please engage that community as much as you can. You were talking about sometimes some of the indigenes live there. I agree with what she just said. It's so easy for all of us to forget where we're coming from. Immediately you have a bit of comfort. Believe me, it's so easy. and you'll be using your current level to estimate the people. We had the president in this nation who said, I'm just getting to know, it was almost at the end of this term when he said, I'm just getting to know the price of kerosene. Mm-hmm. And purportedly at that time, he was doubling as the Minister of Petroleum. I'm sure you know the person I'm talking about. I don't need to mention it. He said, I'm just getting to know, almost at the tail end of his term. Why? He doesn't use kerosene. It's not a day-to-day thing for him. So sometimes there is that wide disconnect between the up and the down. And oftentimes the people down, they see it. And they are waiting for you the time when you think or when they sense you need them. They also want to show to you that we want to tell you how important we are.
Well, Madam, you talked about sustainability earlier. And it's a major topic. There are 17 sustainable development goals. And I know that there is an award in Nigeria called a social, SERAS, I do not remember the exact term, Social Enterprise and Responsibility Awards. Okay. That's what it is. So essentially saying corporations who get involved in the different communities where they operate, their host communities, whether immediately or remotely, they have a way of intervening in their lives in various sectors, gender, electricity supply, and all those things. And they get reportage, and to a large extent, it does a lot for their PR and all. So in terms of engineering sustainability projects, and we've talked about the place of communities here, one of the things that I consider critical here now is a word you used the other time, weaponized poverty. Now, in the rural communities, they have challenges. And, corporations will go there to try to intervene in one way or the other. In terms of receiving from them, the rural community dwellers and all, sometimes there is division in the communities. We referenced that earlier. Absolutely. There is division in the communities. There is a dichotomy between the leadership of the community and the followership in the community. Sometimes it's even among the leadership that we have these divisions. Absolutely. But the corporation, the company, the institution, they want to give. What are the options?
First and foremost, the corporation, it speaks to their strategy when it comes to giving. And if sustainability is part of your giving, that's one thing. Then what kind of project do you want to do within the community? We've talked about relating with them so that you know the kind of project. Don't assume when you are about to get there. Engage the people, relate with the people over time, and then agree on a project. Because by and large, there will be a general consensus. If there isn't, it would frustrate their giving. It would frustrate the sustainability of their gift. So, and that's why this should be done over time. If you decide to just come and you say, this is the time I need to do it so that I will get my reports done, it will be some sort of greenwashing. You are just coming to take pictures with them and then you just go away. It doesn't really make sense. It doesn't hold water. So over time, you relate with them. We've talked about that. We've hammered on that. You get the project. If the community is not coming to a consensus, Nigeria has over 200 million people, so many communities. I believe those organizations should go to where they can be received, their gifts can be received, and something they can actually sustain within that community and ensure that that gift is not, you just don't come and do it and walk away, take pictures, and that's what have you. That you engage them, include the people. I believe in inclusion. Once you include the people, it becomes more sustainable. They're able to take care of that. You teach them also advocacy. There's a place for advocacy. Because at the end of the day, we are controlled by the intangible, which is the mind. And if you do not, as an organization, have a strategy for advocacy, for the gift that you want to bring, at the end of the day, it might just be one of those things and it dies down, or it's a failed project or what have you. So speak to the mind of the people, get their buy-in, and ensure that you are doing what they want and not just what you think they need.
Okay. Pastor. Now, I called you pastor.
Deliberately.
Because that's the direction of this conversation. Most times, people have this mindset that pastors only receive. And I'm talking about the clergy generally. But for this particular season, Christmas season, it's about pastors because it's more of a Christian religious thing. Now, there are those that I remember seeing the video of a pastor, I think in South Africa, who says, if you've not given to your parents, don't give to me. Now, there are those who are also, segments in different communities who believe that, they need to raise the stakes for their clergy to give to the prophet. What belongs to the prophet, so to speak, and all those things. And a lot of that is, happening already and is still happening. But these people who give to their pastors, so to speak, permit me, I'm
please
so,
go ahead.
So many of them have this ideology that, they in my village, they are voodoo practitioners and witches and wizards. So giving to them is like giving them money to destroy my life and all those things. So let me just give to the spiritual so that the spiritual can take care of the physical and all those things. How do you react?
When God said, my people perish, how did he end it? Not because they're not praying, not because they're not going to church, not because they are not doing so many things, just for one reason, for lack of knowledge. Before we came on, Clara and I were having a discussion.
Gloria.
Sorry, Gloria. I'm so sorry, please.
Right.
We could take you to court for that.
Sincerely, I apologize. We're having a discussion, and there was something she said about what she's doing that got me excited. She said, once in a while, we organize listening conference. I said, I've not heard something like that before. Where all you just do is to sit down, let people actually unbundle who they are to you. Then you can know how best to help them. If a man has not really understood who this God that you say you serve is, you can't serve him rightly. We're told we're created in the image and the likeness of God. Those two words are powerful. The image talks about the nature of God. The likeness talks about his functionality, how he operates. So, if this God that is a net giver, that's the way I always like to describe him, is a net giver, not a net taker. Is the one who created you in his image and in his likeness. It will always be your delight to give. In fact, it will be your second nature. Because that is who he is. And then, I go further to teach in church that let's even assume your mother is a witch. Let's assume that you are right to say that mother that gave birth to you is actually a witch. I said, unfortunately, when the Bible says we should honor them, it didn't put any adjective before it.
Except.
No except. No what kind of mother. No what kind of father. That's also another side. Then another side is the side of the supremacy of light over darkness. If you have that understanding that where I am standing within the framework of light, even if there is this ABCD that we talk about, they no longer have authority over me by virtue of who I am and where I am standing. Some of these matters you are raising will not even come up at all. Now, let's eat it directly. The scripture does not forbid you to honor your pastor. But I say to married couple, for instance, that if the honor you give to your husband is not almost commensurate with what you give to your pastor, you are an hypocrite. Therefore, even when it comes to giving, the scripture is so explicit about what categories of people, most of the time, if not all of the time, should get our attention when it comes to subject of giving. Nothing is wrong with giving to your pastor. I'm a pastor. I also have a pastor that I also give to, because there's that dimension also clearly spelled out in the scripture. but one does not take the place of the other. When I'm meant to be a blessing to someone who is in pain and agony, and I say because that person is a witch or wizard, if I give to him, he might use whatever I've given to him to go and do something. And I say, instead, let me give it to my pastor. You are mixing things up. And everything has its place and a place for everything. Now, the truth of the matter is this. A lot of those people that you are talking about, let me give to the pastor. I can bet you, I've been a church person almost all my life. Apart from wanting to give to the pastor, there is something driving them. And that is transactional. Which is, if I give X amount, we are almost turning God to ATM. If I give him X, within so period, I should get XY back. God blesses when we give, but it's not on the platform of transaction. You can't begin to give him terms. I have done this, you must do this. I always say,
You always say?
I always say that God is not your classmate. You can't order him around. So it's a function of who is teaching you, who is your pastor, who is teaching you, and what exactly are they teaching you. And let me say this finally. I say to every believer, please make the Bible your standard of living or your standard for life. And I'm bold enough to always say to the people I lead, the day I ask you to do something that cannot be established in the scriptures and that you have also not seen me practice, don't do it. But the question is, how many of us can say that?
Okay. You sound like you want to say a thing or two to that.
Well, like he said, and I think it brings us back to the issue of motive and whether your giving is transactional. Why are you giving? To get something in return? And who says what you are giving is going to come back in that way you are thinking you'd get it?
That's right.
For example, let me give to my pastor so that I'll be protected. Who says, like you said, God is not your classmate, you can't order him around. You do not know, because, okay, people use it, I think this I don't know if it's a song or it's in the scripture, pastor, correct me, give and it will come back to you, good measure, pressed down, shaking together. And it's in the scripture,
yes.
Running over, shall men give unto you and all that. That is not a kalo machine that you are bringing something to the pastor, so you are going to get this thing back in return. You just give. You just give. And sometimes you are hit hard by, let me even use myself as an example so it's not arbitrary. I got called yesterday to come to Channels TV. I don't know whether it's something I gave or something I did or someone I just got called to come and talk on this show. And who knows, is it for my giving or is it just because it's a favor? So just give and don't have anything transactional in your mind. It still boils down to motive.
So as we wrap this up now in about 2 minutes,
yes.
let's give some guidance to this motive thing. We've talked largely about motives.
Absolutely.
So when you talk about the motive for giving, let me begin with you, Gloria. When we talk about the motive for giving, what should be the motive? We call it the season of love. There should be no season for love. You know, pastors
Every
preach
day,
that
every day
all the
should be.
time. But this is like, as someone said earlier, like a kind of climax for the season of giving, especially in Nigeria. In other parts of the world, in some other countries, it may not be, Christmas may not be as significant in some other countries as it is here.
Yeah.
But for us, in this country, in terms of motive, how should people coin or curl this motive on their minds?
You can learn something, you can unlearn, you can also relearn. So I say this to say that if your motive has always been transactional, you need to unlearn it. You need to start giving from a place of love. You need to start giving without expecting to receive. Because if you are giving to and expecting, sometimes you can give and you don't get a thank you. Something as an act of gratitude or even just a mention of thank you. It has happened to me. You give someone something and even thank you doesn't come. You feel it, but you now say to yourself, why did you give? Maybe that even happened to touch on your motive. Did you give it to receive a thank you? Or you gave it from a place of love? So you need to unlearn. If your giving has always been transactional, you need to unlearn that. And you need to now learn that your giving should just be freely from a place of love and not even expecting anything in return.
Love is a very precious, valuable commodity.
Absolutely.
I checked from scriptures and I found out that in that love chapter, there are 16 characteristics of love.
That's right.
Yes.
Guess what? The number one is patience. So, okay, sounds like you want to say that. We have about 30 seconds for you.
Now, immediately you hit that, you know why I started laughing?
Absolutely.
Is because that negates the kind of message my generation wants to hear. Okay? Because we're in a season of instant passport photograph, instant coffee, instant this, instant that. So even when I say I'm expressing love to someone, somewhere within my heart, I'm also expecting something to happen almost immediately in return as an evidence that I've done something right. I think we should all get back to that scripture you are talking about, and that's Hebrews chapter 13.
First Corinthians 13.
Sorry, 1 Corinthians 13. Thank you.
13.
Thank you. Thank God I'm surrounded with people who could. 1 Corinthians 13.
Yes, sir.
Now, when you look at those values and virtues of love, you will discover that a lot of times what we call love is not love.
Absolutely.
The Bible talks about things like love, consider the other person. All right? It's not about me, I, and myself. So, as I'm planning for this season, let's assume I'm planning for my family. How will my driver and his family also fare in this season?
I think I've started the engine of the pastor. But you just have to take it away now. I'm really sorry.
So, all I would just say is that at the end of the day, really, this should not be a seasonal thing. It should be a lifestyle. When it becomes a lifestyle, it is not a struggle to do, and the perspective will be right, the motive will be right, and you will just discover that we are all contributing to building a healthy society where everybody is considerate and is fair and just in the way we relate with other people.
We began by saying that it's all too easy to get so caught up in the good feelings. And we've just recognized now, in closing this discussion, that love has little or nothing to do with feelings at all, but it does create good feelings.
Absolutely.
We have to thank you very much for being here. Gloria Adaba is a personal development coach. Thank you so much for your time and your contributions today. As well as Pastor Abiodun Bamidele, the Leader's Place Word Assembly. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us
this morning.
Thank you for having us.
We'll close out with this lovely song, and we'll be here again next week on Christmas Day. My name is Ayo Makide. Take care.